Okay, we're going to do a quick walkthrough of how to modify a texture for a Warcraft 3 Reforged SD model. HD models are different. This is for SD models. So first thing we're going to need is Paint.net or any other image editor. Photoshop will work, GIMP will work. I'm going to use Paint.net. Um, we're going to need Warcraft 3 Viewer because this can reliably convert between BLP textures, which the game uses, and other texture formats which the Paint.net will use. And for manipulating the model itself, we're going to use Reterra's Model Studio. I've already got all of these tools downloaded. So first thing I'm going to do is fire up Reterra's Model Studio. There it is. When you first launch this first time, it's going to ask you to point it towards your Warcraft 3 installation directory. That should be pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to go on the right side, we're going to go to the data browser, and in here we've got the War3 W3 mod folder. This is basically the same contents as what used to be in the MPQ archive in old versions of the game before Reforged. So we're going to go to units, and for example, we're going to modify the orc grunt. So orc grunt, and here we've got grunt.mdx. The mdx files are the models. You'll also see MDL files as models sometimes. In this case, it's an MDX. So here he is. Here's our grunt. And we're interested in modifying the texture. So first thing we need to know is which texture we're actually modifying. So we're going to go to Tools in the top, Edit Textures. And here we can see a list of all the texture files that are actually used by the grunt. So we've got, obviously, grunt.blp, shockwave ice, looks like this is a particle effect, and guts, which is for the decaying animation. So this is the one we're going to modify. I think as an example of a simple edit, I'm just going to change the color of the grunt's skin to be blue. So the first thing that we want to do for actually modifying this is we want this to be our own custom model. So first thing I'm going to do is File, Save As. I haven't changed anything about this. I'm just going to change. I'm just going to save a copy of this model. So I'm going to go to Games folder, modding resources, work. I'm going to create a new folder, Grunt example. And for our file name, we're going to make sure that this is an MDX file because that's what we're saving. And we're going to call him grunt custom.mdx. Don't forget to type the file extension. A lot of programs will autofill that, but this one does not autofill it in all contexts. Save that. We also need the portrait model if we want it to actually have a working portrait in game. So we're going to take the portrait model, again, file, save as, and we're going to call this grunt custom underscore portrait.mdx. And for portraits to work correctly, you have to name them with this format. It has to be the same as the unit model, but with underscore portrait, all in lowercase at the end. I don't know if it's case sensitive, but they're all lowercase in the game, so I think it is. I'm going to save that. So now if I pull up my file explorer, I've got my work folder here, and I've got grunt example. There are those two MDX files. So now we're going to make sure that we have our custom grunt model loaded. So it looks identical, but we are no longer looking at the one from the data archive from the actual game. We're now looking at our copy of it that's stored outside the game data archive, so we can actually modify it. Now we're going to go back to this Tools, Edit Textures menu, and I'm going to export the grunt texture so that I can work with it. So we're just going to make sure this is selected and hit Export, and I'm going to go to the same directory that I'm doing all my work in. So that's in modding resources, work, grunt example, and this is what's stored in the game is a BLP, as you can see up there, BLP file. We're going to export it as something more standard. So not a BLP, and we're going to export it as something that can retain transparency because um, most of the team color in these textures is actually transparent. In this context, it looks gray, but it is transparent. So we're going to use PNG because that's lossless and includes transparency, and we'll call it grunt custom.png. Save that, and we can close this menu for now. And I'm going to leave this open, but we don't really need to look at it for now. So we're going to go to our grunt example, and I'm going to right click this and open with paint.net. Now we have a copy of this texture, which we can modify. So I'm just going to select all of the green areas, all of the skin color areas, and do a simple hue shift. So that's just going to be a question of using the lasso select tool to basically isolate all of the colored areas. And since so much of it is colored, I think it's going to be faster for me to isolate the not colored areas and then invert the selection. So I'm holding down the control key to do the addition modifier. So instead of replacing my selection, it'll now add to my selection, and I can hold Alt to subtract. So I'm just going to do that over all the areas that I do not want to recolor. And I'm not going to bother doing the whole model because you should be able to get the idea, and I'm just demonstrating the concept of how it works. We'll go over a couple more of these things. I'm, again, still holding the control modifier to add to the selection. I can also switch selection modes, so I've got rectangle select now, and I can still just hold control and add this rectangle into the selection. Get the idea. Also going to make sure to get hair, and then after I get the hair, I'm just not going to worry about the rest. It'll look a little bit screwy, but I'm not actually trying to create a nice looking model. I'm just demonstrating the. So I'm going to hit Control I, which I think is also in one of these menus you can select. So now that I have the area selected that I am going to modify, I'm just going to go to Adjustments and select Hue Saturation. And if I drag this hue slider, you can see that just changes the color of everything. Again, obviously, if you were doing a real edit that you wanted to keep, you would mask out all the other stuff that you didn't want to change. But this is good enough. So now that I've made my change, I'm going to go ahead and save this, but I'm going to save it as a GA because while Reterra's Model Studio is able to export BLP into other formats, it's not as reliable importing non-BLP and converting it into BLP. I'm not even sure if it can do that. So we're going to use Warcraft 3 Viewer to do that, but Warcraft 3 wants a TGA rather than. So we've got our modified file. We're saving it as gruntcustom.tga. Save and OK. And now we're done editing it, so I'm going to close paint.net. And I'm going to open Warcraft 3 Viewer. There it is. And the tool we're interested in here is going to be convert files, BMP, TGA, or JPEG to BLP. Get that. And go into my work folder. There's my grunt custom.tga. Hit OK. And now it's asking me where I want to output grunt custom BLP. It's suggesting the same folder, so we're going to do that. And compression quality of 85 is the default, and that's fine. It will look fine in game. And there we go. Success. Close that tool. And now you can see in our work folder, We've got the PNG that we initially generated. We've got the TGA, which is the modified version saved, and we've got the BLP. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of the PNG and the TGA for now because I'm trusting that that conversion happened successfully. And I'm going to go back into Rotera's Model Studio. And remember, this model that we have open, I'm going to actually reopen it just to make sure this is our custom one. This is not the vanilla one from the data archive. This is our custom one that we're modifying. I'll open that, and yes, indeed, this is our custom one. So now we're going to apply the new texture to this model. I'm going to go Edit Textures, and we're going to select that Grunt BLP and click Replace Texture at the bottom here. And we're going to search for a BLP image. There it is, Grunt Custom BLP. Hit open, and there you go. Now our custom tinted texture is applied to the model. And you can see the path here is still showing the vanilla one. You just have to click off of it and back onto it, and it'll update the path. So it says Grunt Custom BLP, and that is the path that it will be expecting in the Asset Manager. So we can click this menu, and I'm going to save the model. And now we want the portrait to work as well, so I'm going to open Grunt Custom Portrait, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Edit Textures, and we're going to replace this with our custom one. There we go, and if I close that and reopen it, we should see path Grunt Custom BLP. Save this model, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the level editor, and we're going to test that this model actually works. So I'm going to create a new map, Asset Manager, that's the wrong button, import, or actually we're going to import files, plural. This will let us import an entire folders. C, games, modding, work, Grunt example, I'm going to import the whole folder. So we've got that MDX, portrait MDX, and the BLP. Now, of course, this BLP is War3map imported / Grunt custom BLP. And in here, it's expecting just Grunt custom BLP. So we're going to modify this file path, and we're also going to modify the MDX so that they're all just on the same level. And we're going to go into the object editor and modify the grunt to use our new model. So model file, and you see it's detected that imported file. We're going to select that. There we go. Look at that. We have our blue grunt. Hit OK there. And we're going to run this in-game just to make sure that it works. So we've got a start location, and I'll place a couple of grunts. Hit test map. And we should see it fire up and give us a working blue grunt model with a working portrait. Go, the unit model is working, and looks like the portrait model is working as well. So there you go. That is how you modify a texture for an SD model in Warcraft 3 Reforged.